Karen's sneer could curdle milk, and her sister, Darlene, wasn't far behind, hollering loud enough to scare the pigeons. The park, once a haven of laughter, now held its breath as their venom spewed toward two kids just trying to enjoy a swing. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across Meadowbrook Park, where the air smelled of fresh-cut grass and blooming honeysuckle. Children's laughter usually echoed here, blending with the creak of swings and the chatter of families. But today, the harmony shattered. Karen, a self-appointed enforcer of the Meadowbrook Homeowners Association, waddled onto the scene, her floral muumuu flapping like a warning flag. At 300 pounds, her presence was as imposing as her attitude, her face a permanent scowl of superiority. Beside her, Darlene, her thinner but equally venomous sister, clutched a clipboard, her eyes darting with the glee of a gossip ready to pounce. The targets of their wrath were Malik and Aisha, two black siblings, ages 10 and 12, who were taking turns pushing each other on the swings. Their giggles had been the loudest sound in the park until Karen's voice sliced through. "You kids don't belong here," she bellowed, her chins wobbling with every word. "This park has rules, and you're breaking every single one." Malik froze, his hands gripping the swing's chains, while Aisha's smile vanished, replaced by a wary glance. The rules Karen cited were a figment of her imagination, a flimsy excuse for her prejudice. Meadowbrook Park was public, open to all, but Karen had long treated it as her personal fiefdom. She'd been known to shoo away anyone who didn't fit her narrow vision of acceptable, which, unsurprisingly, meant anyone who wasn't white. Darlene, ever the loyal sidekick, chimed in, waving her clipboard like a weapon. "We've got a list of violations. No loitering, no loud noises, no riffraff." Her voice dripped with disdain, the word riffraff spat like a curse. Malik, bold for his age, stood up. "We're just swinging, lady. We live 2 blocks away." His voice was steady, but his eyes flicked nervously toward Aisha, who was clutching her backpack, ready to bolt. The siblings had faced this kind of hostility before, but it never got easier. Karen took a step closer, her bulk casting a shadow over them. "Don't talk back to me, boy," she snapped. "I know you're kind. You think you can just come here and ruin our park." The word "our" hung heavy in the air, a claim that excluded not just Malik and Aisha, but anyone Karen deemed unworthy. A few park-goers nearby began to notice, their conversations trailing off. A jogger slowed her pace, her phone already out, recording. A father pushing a stroller hesitated, unsure whether to intervene. The tension was palpable, a storm brewing under the golden sunlight. Karen's tirade grew louder, her face reddening as she gestured wildly. "I'm calling the police. You're trespassing, and I won't stand for it." Darlene nodded furiously, scribbling something on her clipboard as if documenting a crime scene. Aisha's eyes welled up, but she stood her ground, pulling Malik behind her. "We didn't do anything wrong," she said, her voice trembling but defiant. "This is a public park." "Public?" Karen scoffed, her laugh a harsh bark. "Not for people like you. This is a nice neighborhood, and we keep it that way." The racism wasn't veiled, Anna Maria, it was blatant, ugly, and raw. The jogger, now openly filming, gasped audibly, and the father with the stroller finally stepped forward. "Hey, lady, back off," he said, his voice firm but shaking. "They're just kids." Karen rounded on him, her finger jabbing the air. "Mind your own business. You don't live in Meadowbrook." "I do, and I say who belongs here." Darlene, emboldened, added, "We're the HOA, we make the rules." The absurdity of their claim HOA jurisdiction over a public parkway is laughable, but no one was laughing. The situation was spiraling, and the kids were caught in the crossfire. Enter Ranger Tom, a lanky man in his 40s with a weathered park uniform and a no-nonsense demeanor. He'd been patrolling the far end of the park when he heard the commotion. As he approached, his radio crackled, and his eyes narrowed at the scene. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice calm but carrying authority. Karen, undeterred, launched into her spiel, pointing at Malik and Aisha. "These kids are causing trouble. They're not supposed to be here, and I demand you remove them." Tom's gaze shifted to the siblings, who stood close together, their faces a mix of fear and defiance. He knelt down to their level, ignoring Karen's bluster. "You two okay?" he asked softly. Aisha nodded, but Malik blurted. "She called us names and said we don't belong here." Tom's jaw tightened, and he stood, turning to Karen and Darlene. "This is a public park," he said evenly. "Everyone's welcome here. You don't get to decide who stays or goes." Karen's face contorted with rage. "Don't you dare lecture me. I pay taxes. I'm on the HOA board." Her voice was a screech now, drawing more attention. The joggers' video was still rolling, and a small crowd had gathered, murmuring in disbelief. Darlene, sensing their authority slipping, tried to double down. "We'll have your job for this. We know people." But Tom was unfazed. He'd dealt with Karens before. The turning point came when Karen, in a fit of frustration, shoved Tom's shoulder, trying to push past him to get to the kids. It was a mistake. Tom stepped back, his hand on his radio. "Ma'am, that's assault," he said, his tone cold. "You need to calm down, or I'm calling the police." Karen laughed, a mocking sound. "Go ahead. They'll side with me." But her bravado was crumbling, and Darlene's clipboard trembled in her hands. Within minutes, a police cruiser pulled into the park's lot. Two officers, a woman and a man, stepped out, their faces neutral but their eyes scanning the scene. The jogger approached them, offering her video, and the father corroborated the story. Malik and Aisha, now sitting on a bench with Tom, recounted their side, their voices steady despite the ordeal. Karen and Darlene, meanwhile, were still shouting about rules and rights, oblivious to the hole they were digging. The officers listened, watched the video, and conferred briefly. Then, to the shock of everyone, especially Karen, they produced handcuffs. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for assault and disorderly conduct," the female officer said, her voice firm. Karen's jaw dropped, her eyes wide with disbelief. "You can't do this. I'm a homeowner. I'm important." Darlene, panicking, tried to intervene, only to be warned to step back or face the same fate. As the cuffs clicked around Karen's wrists, the crowd erupted in murmurs, some cheering quietly. Malik and Aisha watched, their fear giving way to relief. The officers led Karen to the cruiser, her muumuu catching on a bush as she stumbled, her dignity in tatters. Darlene followed, still clutching her useless clipboard, her face pale. The park slowly returned to its normal rhythm, the swings creaking again, but the weight of what had happened lingered. Later, at the station, Karen's bluster continued, but it fell on deaf ears. The video, now circulating online, painted a clear picture, a woman undone by her own prejudice, her entitlement, her downfall. The HOA issued a weak apology, distancing itself from her actions, but the damage was done. Meadowbrook's residents, many of whom had long resented Karen's reign of petty terror, began organizing to oust her from the board. Malik and Aisha returned to the park the next day, hesitant but determined. The swings were waiting, and so was Ranger Tom, who gave them a nod and a smile. The park felt different now, lighter, as if Karen's shadow had been lifted. The siblings played, their laughter a quiet victory, a reminder that justice, though slow, could still prevail. The incident wasn't just a story of Karen's comeuppance. It was a lesson in the cost of hatred. Karen and Darlene had wielded their privilege like a weapon, only to find it turned against them. The park, once their stage, became their reckoning. And for Malik and Aisha, it was a step toward reclaiming a space that was always theirs. The end.